Hello, it's Simone. I am trying to film an ink rotation report and it just doesn't work. So, in December, I have used my fountain pens 16 times to journal in my journal. I often use my fountain pens in my YouTube notebook as well, but I have only written, I wrote some things, not too many things for in December. This is how much I used, and I mainly used the same ink, same pens. And then I also use my fountain pens to write letters, which I only wrote 2. So I did not use my fountain pens as extensively as I did in other months. That means that I can, some of those pens I only used for one writing session. That doesn't really give me a lot of, experience with the pen. It doesn't give me lots of feedback on how I enjoy using it. I did notice that I was drawn to some pens more than others. I'm just going to flip through the last week of November. This is when I filmed my ink rotation report and my currently inked video. In this week, I journaled quite a bit, used all the new pens that I had inked. Then I moved over to this Hobonichi Weeks as my ink log, ink jotter, and I do have a video on my YouTube channel I think it's one of the most recent videos where I walk you through how I use this. And in the beginning of December, end of November, I did journal quite a bit, and then it fizzled out. Especially towards the week of Christmas and New Year. That's always when, first of all, the days are darkest, and I'm not very motivated to do many things. And also when I'm with my family doing things, when they're off. We often watched TV in the evening when I usually journal, and some of these things that I watched just needed my full attention, and I couldn't, like with YouTube videos, I journal and have them on in the background. That didn't work with the shows. So that's how that turned out. I see some tendencies, and I will talk about those later. I had a lot of ins of pens in December. Part of the reason why I kind of went a little bit crazy was the fact that I knew that I wanted to limit my fountain pen acquisitions in 2023. So I bought them all in 2022, which I know defeats the purpose, but I really wanted to use a TWSBI Go for shimmer inks. I heard lots of good things about cleaning those. And since I was there, I also purchased a brass Travelers Company fountain pen. I've been using this to journal in my weekly journal, but I am losing my cap all the time. It's never where I put it, and I don't post my TWSBIs. So the idea of having a pocket pen where the cap is also part of the body when you write was just so appealing that I couldn't not buy it. And it actually really works. I'm not losing my cap. And I didn't really have lots of expectations towards this pen because I heard many people say that it's not a good pen. But to my surprise, I really enjoy writing with it. So I'm gonna film a video about this, just sharing my first impressions and all that, or second impressions because they're not firsts anymore, soon, but not right now. Today I went to do my ink rotation report, and then for Christmas I had this pen on my wish list. We gave each other my Secret Santa gave this to me with this pen loop. And yeah, I put it on here so I can use it in my Hobonichi Day Free. I didn't realize when I put it on my wish list that it had a medium nib, and it's quite wet and juicy. And I'm not sure that this will work long term on Tomoe River paper, but I'm willing to give it a try. So we'll see how that goes. I'm definitely gonna keep you updated. Maybe I want to film a video comparing these two. So that's a thing that's in the back of my mind. And then the last pen that came on December 31st, so I barely made it, and I didn't break my fountain pen resolutions, was this pen. Again, I haven't even, I just opened it, dipped it, and wrote with it to make sure that everything is okay. It's a Pilot Custom Heritage 92 with a medium fine nib, and I got it on Amazon for a good price. I don't know if they're priced like that all the time. That's why I didn't put it on my 2023 acquisitions list. I just went for it. And yeah, I will see when I'm going to ink that one up and share my first impressions with you. And then I was gifted a pen from a friend on here. It's a TWSBI Eco White with a 1.1 stub nib. And because it was already inked when it arrived, it brought up my inked fountain pens to 11. Which, considering the fact that I only journaled 16 days, it made it really hard for me to get a good impression of those. I'm glad I had some of them already inked in October, November. Well, so I had already inked this one. Is that it? Is this moved on? Yeah, I only had those two inked, but so I didn't gravitate towards those when picking the pens because I wanted to make sure that I wrote with the other ones. Let's quickly talk about the fact that why I do what I'm doing, because I think it's really important to know that this is not the only way how you can ink your pens. There's people who have all of their fountain pen collection inked at all times. There's people who just have 1, 2, or 3 pens inked at one time and then just re-ink or switch them out more frequently. There is people who ink their pens at random, and all of that is great. What I think is important to figure out is, what type of person are you? What works for you? What works best for you? How do you like journaling? How do you like experiencing your fountain pens and inks? And then do that. And then watch these videos with a grain of salt and enjoying something that somebody else does, but knowing that that's not something that you do. The reason why I limit the amount of fountain pens, pick a color palette, is because I am easily overwhelmed with too many choices. So I love that I have these pens inked. I don't think about all of the other pens that I own. And when it's time to switch, then I'm really excited to explore other pens, keep some maybe because I really enjoy them so much, or because I don't want to waste the ink. And then also, I really enjoy having maybe 4 pens that I keep with specific inks, and then creating another rainbowy color palette around that. That just, these 20 minutes, 30 minutes that I spend looking through my ink samples, swatches, and picking inks that I might want to use is so joyful, relaxing, and it just, you know, it's other people meditate. I do these things, and that's why I do them. If you've been following me for a long time, you also know that I'm somebody who I really enjoy those boundaries, but I need to really find the balance between having those boundaries be too tight, and then I'm easily rebelling against my own boundaries. So I really need to be very mindful. Is this still working for me? Is it not working for me? What else is going to work for me? And to let me enjoy this to the fullest. Right now, this is how it works for me, but I'm always conscious in the back of my mind that if I'm not journaling a lot, or if I'm only using 2 pens, maybe it's time to rethink my approach. That's all I wanted to say about this. Now, let's talk about the pens that I have currently inked. I'll start with the top. This is the Franklin Christoph Model 2. It's a one-of-a-kind model that I purchased at the San Francisco Pen Show in 2022. I purchased it with a medium nib. This is a Yobo number 6 nib. And it is currently inked with Sailor Manyo Neko Yanagi. I really like the way I hold this pen. I like that it's very lightweight. I love that I can post it, but I didn't use it a lot. And I think the reason why I didn't use it very much this month is because of the ink. Even though I love this ink in theory, I love how it chromo shades. It has hints of purple, pink, and blue. I think I need to admit that these light purple inks are just not my jam. I love them in theory, but for some reason, I just cannot make them work. And I especially notice that the time that I'm journaling is often when it's dark outside, when there is some dim lights lit in my living room. Maybe there is light from the TV screen, but it's not really well lit. And then these colors are really hard to read. And so I wasn't drawn to this as much as I had hoped to. But I really love how this ink matches the pen though. Isn't it cool? So I'm going to give, last time I had this separation in ink and pen. Maybe I'll write it right here again, pen. So it's a negative for the ink and it's a plus for the pen. Didn't use it much. But I love the feel of the pen. Then this was the TWSBI Eco Purple Glow with an extra fine nib, inked with Diamine Deep Magenta, and it already has a flag on here because this is just a really, really great pen and ink combination. This was super wet. I didn't realize that I was writing with an extra fine nib when I used this pen, and I had been shying away from extra fine nibs because I felt they were super scratchy. Not this one. So I love the color, like love the color. I love the pen. This was a perfect pair. And I can't even say anymore. I love that it's not a sheening ink. It's just deep magenta. And it works. I'm so glad I purchased a bottle, even though I didn't want to purchase any ink bottles. This one was definitely worth purchasing. I would have to say that I actually even like it more than Sailor Manu Akebi, which was my favorite color of this hue, but this one trumps it for sure. Then I had my Lamy 2000, which I purchased during Black Friday at Endless Pens, also with an extra fine nib. It's the Macrolone Black inked with diamine oxblood. I am so surprised by this pen. I was extremely afraid that I would not enjoy the writing experience, that I would slide down the grip section, and that I would grip it too tightly because of that reason. But none of this is actually true. The pen is super juicy. I don't have to put any pressure on this pen to write, which I never should, but sometimes that happens, right? When maybe the ink is too dry, or both the nib and feed and the ink are too dry, then you tend to press down, not with this pen. I'm not sure if I really like this ink. It worked well in this pen for sure, but it's not something that I would purchase a bottle of, however I did. So, yay me. I gravitated towards this so much that I think I wrote with it just in December. I inked these more just previously, like a week before, but I decided. So if you're watching this and you watched my YouTube video about this wasn't there. I didn't have a plan for this. So this is an update. I am going to track each rotation, even though it's not necessarily the month, how often I used each pen. So I used the Lamy 2000 2 times for journaling. I just used it yesterday for a letter that I wrote. So I used it 3 times. Which is a lot if you think about it. If I only journaled for 16 days, and then out of those I used this one 2 times, it might be a good pen. So I'm not too happy with the ink. It's an okay ink. It's a super duper fountain pen. So I love the fountain pen. Want to try more inks. Then next, I had it previously inked in a Lamy Safari with a 1.1 stub nib. It was really weird. It wrote very light, very orangey, one thing, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, it started dumping really black pigment onto the paper, not while writing. So it wasn't a problem with like maybe dumping ink randomly. You can see it right here. This is what it looked like. This is what it looked like here. This is what it looked like in this pen. It was more legible, and it was a little bit wetter in this pen. This is a Twisby Swipe with a fine nib, but the switching between the really orangey color and the black pigment still continued to happen. So that wasn't a problem with the pen. That was something else. Not really sure why that happened. These 2 pens, these 2 inks are very similar, and it didn't happen the same way with the Cheerio Water Buzz. So I'm not sure what is different with the Draculea from Pannonia. I would say that this was probably my least favorite combination. And I wasn't as drawn to the pen either because it wrote really, really dry. So I think the Lamy just needs really wet inks to shine. So dry writing experience. And then weird ink behavior. All right, next. I actually am going to put a flag on here as well, because every time I use this pen, I just used it for journaling in January. So I think I used it once in December and then once in January, still inked. And I think before the end of November, I used it too. Did I not? Not sure. So I used it on December 13th, and then did I use it? Wow. Nope. But I used it here once. Yeah. So I used it in this ink rotation. I used it 1, 2, 3 times. The pen is heavy, but it feels really good in my hand. Some people say this looks like baby poo. I don't really care. I love what this ink does. It looks green, but then there's orangey red undertones here. This chromo shading is amazing. And I could just watch how this looks and changes when it dries all the time. So this was really good. It's really cold in my house, and it felt like I had a really hard time with these steel nibs writing. It felt very strenuous writing, not just with this one, but with all of them. That was really weird. Like I had such a hard time writing in general, like getting those fine motor movements. And I often felt like it was so tedious to form letters. I experienced that with this one especially, and then also with the other TWSBIs. I'm not 100% sure if this is a steel nib experience versus gold nib experience. I just noticed it in December especially. But this pen is awesome, and the ink is awesome. I loved using it and watching ink dry. It's just a really good pen for the size and the make, and I really love that it doesn't have any flow issues, nothing. It's reliable. That's what it was. The TWSBI Eco T in apple green with a medium nib. I can't even remember when I used it. It's almost empty, so I definitely am going to clean that out. I'm really curious to see how that works out, if I have to undo the piston or if cleaning it through the nib and feed is going to work. I will definitely update you in my next ink rotation report on that, but we'll just say I'm not giving any ratings. Nice continuation. Yeah, that sounds about right. Then this one, I actually feel like I have to write with this one more time. I need to agitate this ink a little, but this is not the right representation of this ink, because now it's like so much darker. Platinum 3776 Diamine Tempest. This is how this pen wrote. For a shimmer ink, it was really great. I think I told you before that I'm not necessarily a shimmer ink fan. I prefer it over sheening inks. But this one has just the slightest hint of shimmer. Maybe it's because the way I inked it, or maybe that's just the formulation of the ink. And you can see it when it's dry, and then just sometimes when the light hits it right. That was really lovely. So this is definitely a great ink. This pen was the pen that I gravitated towards most. This is probably my favorite pen at the moment. I would probably buy a fine and a broad just to have them in this nib size, but I don't because I put this stupid ink fountain pen purchasing rule on myself. I know it's for good, but these, yeah, if you have money or a pen and you want to give me one of those in broad or fine, I would not say no at all. These are fantastic. And it's really weird, right? Like, favorite pen, and really great. I'm going to write this. Great ink for a shimmer. Lol. Then I used this one to write a letter. This is basically empty. There's just a little bit of color on the outside of the barrel here. Maybe it's hard to be cleaned. I don't know. This is the TWSBI Eco Cerulean Blue with a reverse architect nib. I probably shouldn't have gotten this ground on a broad nib. My understanding is that the finer the base nib size, the smaller the difference between the strokes of the architect. And this is not really usable, the architect side, as an everyday writer for me. So I like it. I used it to write hi pen pal. But when I wrote the rest of the letter, I used the extra fine or ultra extra fine nib on the regular side. I had problems with this in the beginning. It felt super scratchy. I think I finally got the sweet spot where I can use it without it feeling like it's ripping my paper. And then I really love it. I love the way my handwriting looks. I love the way the fine line looks. But it's not something that I can just, use and write, and it doesn't really matter how I hold my hand and my pen. I really have to concentrate when I use this. So I'll put, surprisingly enough, this color ink is lovely. I wasn't sure if I would like it, but I do. I think I said that the last time around too. So let's put no rating and say that got used to extra fine, but somehow the architect is not usable in everyday writing. I think that summarizes my thoughts perfectly. Perfectly. Then this one is the Navalor Original Plus, and the colorway is Azureus Plu. It's a heavy pen. I noticed I journaled with it twice, I think. It's also a vacuum filler, like this one. This one is heavier than this one. I didn't have the same, rustiness issues, the I feel like an old lady arthritic hands, which I probably will have at some point, but it has a nice grip section. But it's definitely, I felt the weight. The nib is super soft, glidey, slippery. It doesn't have a lot of bounce, but it's just very, very buttery, softly tuned, if that makes sense. Doesn't feel as hard as the other steel nibs. The ink is lovely. Just perfect. I really took a long time to warm up to this ink. I'm not going to, it's not a negative for this pen. I think I just, again, as with, this was the first time that I had this pen inked, I just need to get more experience with it and more writing time. It took me a long time to warm up to this ink, but I think I really love it. And in the dim lighting, this ink is still legible compared to this one. That one isn't. This one is not when it's too dark, but this one is, and that's cool. Oopsie, I'm sorry. Love the ink. Need to experience pen more. But it's heavy. It might be the heaviest pen that I own. Not sure. And then the last pen that I had inked is the Pilot Custom 74 Burgundy with a medium nib. This is a gold nib. It was inked with Octopus Fluids Sepia Schwarz. And I can say right now that I don't like the color. And I did enjoy writing with this pen, but especially when I wrote with this, after this, it felt like I sunk into a soft mattress, and it was really weird. Not that the pen dragged over the paper or that it was a muddy feeling, as it is sometimes with Cosmo Air Light. It's more like I put the nib to the paper and then it goes down even more. And that's why I'm really excited for this, to test out this medium fine nib. I might like a finer nib on this pen, which this is basically the piston and flat top version of this pen. Yeah, so I used this pen tons of times this year, but this time around I didn't really enjoy the writing experience, which is very weird. So I will write that nope to the ink, and then didn't enjoy pen as much as previously. And this is exactly the reason why I am putting a stop on my pen purchases. If I would budget for more pens, I could do that. It's not that I want to be do a no spend or anything like that. It is because I need to experience all of those pens that I have in my stash currently more, so that I can understand my pen preferences. And I talked about this in my video, my year in review. It has already changed, or there are tendencies that I didn't expect to crystallize in the course of the last year. And in order to not purchase pens that I might not like or nib sizes that I don't enjoy, I really need to dig deeper on those pens and then make more conscious decisions on what pens come into my house. I think I do have a really great foundation of pens to do that right now. And that's why I really, really need to stop. So for 2023, I am allowing myself one fountain pen every other month. So I paired them into groups of 2. So there will be a January, February pen, a March, April, blah, 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 blah. Maybe I will make an exception for the San Francisco Pen Show, but I will need to see how I'm able to stick to those rules, boundaries that I set for myself. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say about this ink rotation this time around. I'm really excited and scared to film the currently inked video for January, which will be my best fountain pen ink combinations of 2022. I'm really excited to see how that is going to work out, but I'm also really scared and kind of bummed that I cannot use any of these new pens that I am dying to ink up. So here you go. I'm limiting myself and I'm trapped in my own regulations, but I decided that if I don't at least give it a try and see how I like that experience of filming a best of and making and using best of pens, I will never know if this is something that I like. If I don't at least try it once, I don't know if I want to make one for 2023 in January of 2024. But if I do it now and I notice, oh my gosh, I'm so over all of this, then I don't have a rule that says you have to use these for at least a month. So I'm going to do that. Dive in right now. I'll talk to you in the next video and let you know how all of this goes down. Thank you so much for watching and taking the time. I really love sharing all of this with you. The reason why I make those videos is you, and because I love connecting with all of you. It's another one of my stationary fountain pen goals is to write more happy mail to connect with this community. And that's what I'm going to do. I hope to see you soon. Until then, bye.